Hey everybody, here we are, last chapter, chapter 8. Sweet. And it's been overall a good experience. I've gotten a lot of really good feedback about the book, and I'm glad of that because I think that it's one of these things that can really help us. Most of our course is talking about, these religions that are out there, and some of them are not applicable to me, but I feel like a book like this is applicable to every person because we all are going to deal with tragedy in our lives in one point or another, or we're all going to have the opportunity to be able to help those around us who are going through tragedy. And that's why I think this book is so valuable. And that's why I tried to reach out and tell you, hey, of all the books that you're going to buy, for school for a particular semester, this book is one that is totally worth getting and having for your own personal library. And I firmly believe that. So now on to chapter 8. I'm going to start on page 146, where he goes through expectations of God, um, and that sometimes we have again, what is the expectations that we have of God? Kushner says the most anyone promised us was that we would not be alone in our pain, and that we would be able to draw upon a source outside of ourselves for the strength and courage we would need to survive life's tragedies and life's unfairnesses. If your expectations are more than that, then you're off and you'll be disappointed because nothing was promised before that. So he kind of like brings it all together. And this is an important thing is, the question of why bad things happen to good people. Well, the actual scientific, where does the bad things come from? Bad things happen because, and it's on page 147 there. God doesn't cause our misfortunes. Misfortunes come sometimes by bad luck. Some are caused by bad people, and some are simply inevitable consequences of us being human beings and being mortal, like pain and death. Living in a world of inflexible natural laws. Gravity's not going to feel bad for you if you fall off of your house. And so we can't get mad and blame other people, or well, other people when they're being mean or whatever, but we can't blame God for the bad things that happen when in fact those are where bad things happen. But why do they happen? That's another story, right? Because people want suffering to have meaning. We want it to have a reason. We want that meaning. And sometimes sometimes there is no meaning to the action. Now Kushner says that we give meaning to them, right? By how we react and respond. That the actions themselves don't have meaning. That it's actually how we respond to them. And he uses the idea of a martyr, and then he goes on to use the phrase devil's martyr, which like freaked me out the first time I heard that. A martyr is somebody who like dies for their faith. But if the person just dies, are you Christian? Yes, and they're dead. That doesn't make a person a martyr. What a martyr is when other people see that or they hear that story and it inspires them to improve themselves or bring them closer to God or move them towards some kind of some betterment of society, right? And so it's the meaning of the martyrdom, the meaning of our actions is insignificant sometimes. But what it is what are the reactions? How do people respond to them? And when he talks about the devil's martyr, that is kind of scary. So like if grandma dies and I feel bad about that and I say, well, forget this, God doesn't exist, and I'm then what I've done is I've turned grandma into a devil's martyr. That that the reactions that happened from her death, took away, didn't add, but took away from life and kindness and spirituality, and that's terrible, and so their deaths actually brought uh, less love to the world, and it's not grandma who is doing that, it's me. It's me who's doing that. Um, so how does God help us? On page 154, Kushner says, let me get there. He says, we were looking for God to help us. He says God doesn't cause or prevent the tragedy. He helps by inspiring people to help. Human beings are God's language. He talks about how they were sustained in his son's illness by people going out of their way to show that they cared, and so they understood. And this is how God, this is God's army, is you and me. We go out into the world and we have compassion for the people who need help, and so we reach out and we help, and therefore we are God's language. We are the ones who give the compassion and the strength and the courage to others. That is how God gives these things in the world. And so we have to be on board with that. And we have to be willing to give strength and courage to other people because God is calling us to do that. Um, and I think what's really important and I think kind of sobering in all this is that he says that there is no justice and there isn't justice in the world. Isn't perfect justice in the world. There is only love, right? How we love and care and reach out and try to take those who are below us and lift them up and help people off the ground. And that's love, and that's in the world. But where is justice? Is there no such thing as justice? And the answer is yes. The answer is that justice belongs to the next world. For those who have faith, those who have a belief in God, then you recognize that the justice will exist in the next world. And you know what that's called? That's called hope. Hope is the thing that lifts my spirit when I take a look and I see um, social injustice and I see the Black Lives Matter movement, which yes, Black Lives Matter too, right? They matter as well, um, and it's important for us to try and strive to make this world a better place. But I can get really worn down um, by the insurmountable hill of injustice that exists in this world. But I don't. And the reason for that is hope. I know that even if we don't get it in this world, we'll get it then. And in the end, God has the last say. And for me, that takes a lot of the weight, a lot of the pressure off of my shoulders. That I know that as long as I just keep doing the best I can, eventually it will work out. And that's very comforting, you know. And for those who say, well, you know what, I just don't believe in a God, so whatever. So none of this applies. Well, then I would say, what is this? If there is no justice in the world, then doesn't it make this world really depressing? What do you strive for? To do what you can in the moment, and that's all? And how many times does that not work out? That without some kind of hopeful afterlife, this world is very is not worth living in a lot of ways, right? Because nothing is going to improve, nothing is going to change. Um, but that's a choice that people make. I personally would much rather have a positive outlook, and see the good and not focus on the bad, knowing that in the end, good wins. And that's worth it to me to believe. And lastly, so the answer to why, when bad things happen to good people here, he talks about, like, so is there an answer? And he says that the word answer has two definitions. The first definition is an explanation, right? To explain something. 1 + 1 is 2. And he says that there are no explanations for evil in the world. But he says that there are responses because, to answer somebody, yes, 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 we do. You got spirit. How about you? Right. And then the other side answers. So that kind of answer, the sense of, do you respond to the evil that happens in your world? Do you respond to those tragedies? And how we respond is all the difference. Peace.